You know, that's funny because I used to deliver packages. I used to be a messenger in Chicago, and I think it was like my first week on the job, and some reporter came to me, and this is right when Obama had just got elected. He was speaking in Chicago at Millennium Park and everything, right down the road from where I was at in the Loop, and this lady comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, you, what do you think about Obama being elected?" And I'm like, I don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand. I don't have anything to say, and I wasn't even awake at that point. But I just didn't have an opinion. You know.
Yeah.
I wish I could talk to her now.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Okay, so in addition to education, advertising and propaganda, predictive programming, you've got sports, politics, and even religion. And remember our last conversation when I said, don't be surprised if taxes increase? Well, I finally understand something now that I didn't understand then, and that is Obamacare is a tax.
Well, yeah. They've been saying that for a while.
That's right.
Obamacare is not health care.
No, I mean, everything is so 1984 George Orwell
It's
upside down.
eugenics care.
Yeah, it's like the Unaffordable Sick Care Act. Like, you know.
Have you actually gone through and read it?
Well, who can? Because it's over 20,000 pages.
Yeah, I think I read like 1,000 some pages of. A friend of mine got a copy, and he actually read through the whole thing. And it's just like there's so much packaged in there. Like the first 3,000 pages might be about healthcare, but the rest of it is just random things like regulating Christian radio. It's ridiculous. What does this have to do with healthcare?
And by the way, with Obamacare, we know people personally that have actually had to quit their practices and different jobs that they businesses. Yeah. I mean, it's affecting people out here in this small rural area.
Yeah, one of the main planks of the fascist and communist manifestos is healthcare.
Yes, it is.
Now, here's the thing. People who are listening to this from America, and that's most people, are going to say, well, it's not surprising that a Canadian would say that. Well, hang on here. We've got to understand that Obamacare has only arisen out of the fact that America is in its death throes financially. If America were more healthy fiscally, we wouldn't even be getting into Obamacare. As a matter of fact, just as a contrast, when the so-called socialist healthcare program was introduced in Canada, that was introduced debt-free because at the time, the Bank of Canada was printing money interest-free. Because it says in our Constitution, and it says in yours, that the government has the right to, in your case, coin gold and silver as money.
Congress shall issue.
That's right. And in our case, print up the currency. But
that's assuming you're under the Constitution now.
You got that right. Okay. So everything is upside down. And as far as religious control is concerned, here's an article headline from WorldNet Daily. I don't agree with everything that they say. It's a distinctly right-wing bias, but sometimes they get it right. Churches enlisted as trusted partners to sell Obamacare. And it goes in to describe, with quotations and links to the actual pamphlets. Where churches' 501c3 tax status is guaranteed because, of course, you wouldn't want your donations going without any kickback from the government now. So don't say anything political, but here's a brochure that you can hand out to your congregation to sell Obamacare.
Well, yeah, 501c3, baby.
There you go. So if people say, well, what are you talking about? Religious control? That's impossible. Well, I just gave you an example.
It's we've talked with a couple of different pastors, some friends of mine, like, 501c3 just means I can't say anything about a specific political leader. Well, what about what they require you to do? Well, for example, did we talk? I don't remember if we referenced this last time, but we have a food bank, a food truck that comes to our church to distribute. And a friend of ours who's on the board of our church found out that they are restricted. They are not allowed to share the gospel or talk about anything really church related at all, short of maybe, we have church services here on Sunday.
When
they're giving out that food.
Because that's a government distributed
funded program.
Benefit.
Unbelievable. See, that just confirms other stories that I've also confirmed, whereby churches have been required to take down the cross in their sanctuary.
Would you like me to put an ankh in its place? Would that make you happier?
We joke about it, but it's so sad. I mean, people are just asleep, and it's just driving me crazy. They tell me, I don't want to get into anything political. And I say, well, you just made a political statement.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's control in sports, politics, and religion because sports has become a religion. And our churches have become, dare I say it, increasingly extensions of the government. And then there's control of food, water, and the air. And we will get into that later tonight. Okay, how can you control the air? Oh, you'd be surprised.
We're getting into almost volume 3 here.
Oh, yeah, this is a little bit of a preview, a little sneak peek into volume 3.
I'm stoked.
Excellent. Okay. And then, of course, there's control through drugs.
Pharmakia.
Through the No Child Left Undrugged. No Child Left Behind.
Oh, man. Actually, interesting, Leonard. I'm just coming off of a drug that I was taking to help me sleep, and the side effects have been I'm getting to sleep till like 5 a.m. because my body doesn't know how to sleep without it. It's ridiculous.
Okay, let me ask you a few questions. Are you in a house that is loaded with Wi-Fi?
Actually, yes.
Do you wake up at typically 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, sometime 2 to 3 usually.
Okay, have you ever noticed a certain syncopated hum in your computer speakers where it goes like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little more staticky, but yes.
That's right. That is a microwave burst that is synchronizing the NSA database to whatever goes into or out of your computer. And that microwave burst, yeah. Yeah. So, people say, NSA, how could they possibly spy on you?
Oh, well, come on.
There's a synchronization point. You've got to synchronize data. I'm at a workplace where all kinds of German computers are talking to Italian computers, are talking to English computers, and there's constant data synchronization issues that we have. So one database has to be synchronized with another. And that typically happens at about 4 o'clock in the morning, when, of course, activity is generally minimal. And that microwave burst, especially if you have microwave-based thermostats, these smart meters, can interfere with cognitive functions. And also, as someone who has gone through a heart attack, I have blood sugar spikes and drops, and it's really hard. It's almost like diabetic symptoms without the diabetes. So I have found that if I do not invest the time in exercise and getting to bed at regular times, even on a Saturday morning, I will get up early now. I will do lots of physical work, knowing that I will get tired like an old man, and I will have an afternoon nap. That's one of the few times I will allow myself to have a nap throughout the week. Basically Saturday afternoon, that's it. Because I'm wanting to develop a circadian rhythm in my heart and throughout my body. So my point is this: if you don't isolate yourself from the electromagnetic frequency pollution, which is increasingly affecting us, and if you do not develop regular physical habits, you're going to be prone for all kinds of sleep disorders. And that is especially true given the fact, and we can get into this later on, HGTV is absolutely loaded with psychotronic information that affects you subconsciously. And we'll get into it later on, but that also affects sleeping patterns. The whole point is to disrupt any kind of rhythm to make you more susceptible to subliminal and overt messages. Because if you are in a state of anxiety from a mild level to a moderate level, you are less likely to think and to reason your way out of certain situations.
Oh yeah, you're just like whatever's quickest.
Exactly.
The reason I was taking that is I had suffered a concussion about a year and a half ago that it caused me not to be able to walk for several months.
Oh, wow.
And ever since then, my sleeping patterns have been off, irregular. Actually, the drug I was taking was causing seizure-like symptoms, so had to get off of that. But yeah, I've had trouble sleeping ever since, and I've been trying to get into a physical routine, but if I don't have sleep, I have problems, so it's hard to do physical things when you have trouble standing up.
Oh, I would agree. And I would encourage you to enter your symptoms into Google and do your own research as far as homeopathy is concerned. Because, and by the way, don't trust the first thing that comes up on your screen, because, I mean, there's all kinds of quacks out there trying to sell you quack cures in response to the pharmaceutical industry. So there's distrust in both fields.
Yeah. My wife, both of our wives actually are pretty up on a lot of the herbal things, and they're learning more. My mother-in-law knows quite a bit of it. And I actually see a chiropractor and a nutritionist, and they're the ones like, you got to stop taking this like now.
Well, and we were firmly against vaccinating our children as well. So
yeah, they got one in on my daughter. They asked my wife if they could vaccinate our little girl when she was going into heavy labor to sign the paper when I wasn't present.
What?
Yeah, I was not, and she signed it. She didn't know what she was doing.
Well, of course not. You're a little bit preoccupied at that point.
Exactly. They did it at like 5 minutes after she's out of the womb.
Well, that's just, at the weakest point, while you're not there, they throw that on her. That's shameful.
it's just like signing up for the birth certificate right away, too.
Well, yeah. Oh, and on that subject, I can tell that I didn't entirely explain myself. And so I'm going to use a biblical example. When Jesus was born, all citizens throughout the Roman Empire, including in Palestine, had to go back to the town or city of their birth. And that was designed to make an accurate database as to how far the Roman government could push the tax burden on their citizens. Now, here's a critical thing. Throughout history, for thousands of years, if a ruler was so foolish as to go beyond the roughly 40% total tax burden, they would typically have a rebellion on their hands. And the only reason why you don't have a revolt yet is because the system of tax rebates gives you back crumbs of your own money so that you're still hovering around the 40%. Now, the elites know this because they're studying history. They're not studying football and Miley Cyrus. Okay, so the elites, the bankers who run the government, will keep the game going until the absolute last moment because the system as it is working for them. And as it continues to deteriorate increasingly, it will only empower them. And when the system collapses, they will already have the answer, and they'll be hailed as heroes in the mind of the public because they can rescue us, when in fact, they were at the controls of the problem all along. It's just sick. I mean, to know all this is just sick.